Okay, so that's how ag activity and weights and measures activity get entered into the system. And then there's one last one, which is the pesticide activity. Let me go look at, so in order to get my time synchronizing with CalPEATS, there's one step I have to do in here, which is go to my profile and get myself connected to a CalPEATS user, right? So CalPEATS is a separate system, has separate user IDs and passwords. CASA owns it, we don't, so we're not comfortable yet necessarily sharing that information. But in order to get my CalPEATS time to show up on my timesheet, I've got to tell CalCATS which CalPEATS user I am. Connecting my CaliCo admin Amador account in test to the CaliCo 03 account in CalPEATS test, which is a user account I have in the CalPEATS test system. Now that they're connected, when I go to my timesheet, I'm going to start seeing pesticide activity show up here. So if I hop over to CalPEATS and I log in as CaliCo 03, and let me do a new inspection. So let's do this guy. And I'm not going to fill out a whole lot of details. The only things that, in order for time to show up in CalPEATS, I have to complete and close the inspection. So what you'll see, either of you kind of taken a look on the CalPEATS side of this yet?
So we both use it in
Yes.
CalPEATS. I haven't done what you did. Barry made up the test CalPEATS site and did configure his timesheet program to it. I think Barry did
Yes,
that?
I was able to get them connected, and thank you, John, for getting my credentials in there. I was amazingly amazed on how fast it does synchronize. It only took a couple of seconds, felt like.
So one thing that does concern me is you mentioned that this inspection would have to be closed for those hours to show up. So if a person is, let's say, doing an inspection like that you're doing right now, and their supervisor is on vacation, supervisor comes back Monday or Tuesday and reviews and closes the inspection. Again, that could be like a 4 to 5 day lag. And now the inspector is not able to complete their timesheets. That could be a source of stress, I think, for that person.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
So how about instead of it being closed, how about that those hours become available once it goes to in review would be my recommendation.
Yep, that's exactly what
because supervisors, let's be honest, are not always Johnny on the spot on getting in there and reviewing these guys' inspections.
Yeah, that may have been a sideways attempt of mine to try and get them to hurry up and get inspections reviewed.
Well,
John, can you try that?
What?
Because I thought the hours are being transferred automatically or immediately, even with an open inspection.
Well, I just added 2 hours to this inspection.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's take a look at it and see whether they show up.
Timesheet.
And it didn't.
No. Let's check the date. It's on 6/29.
Maybe pop it into review or it closed and see what happens.
Yeah, right now we're running the synchronization processor, I think every 15 seconds. So, it does take a second, but there you go. Pop in.
Yeah, and again, my point is that the employee that is not able to close their own inspections, right? Barry can close his because he's like admin or supervisor or whatever, right? But for those that cannot, now now essentially they have a timesheet that shows that they only worked 6 hours that day when they know that they worked 8, could be a source of an issue.
Yep,
As far as the time goes, it has nothing to do with how accurate the inspection is. So
that's
yeah, I
correct.
would think in review would be a really nice way to do it.
You know, it may well make sense to even do it for in progress, because like Eric said, or whoever was said that, the time entered has nothing to do with, you know, it may be that I've entered 3 hours for today and the inspection's still in progress. Well, that just means I'm going to enter 2 more hours tomorrow. It doesn't affect the 3 hours I entered today.
Exactly.
That is correct.
The more,
Now, and especially once you get into like investigations, sometimes investigations will take 3 months
Yep.
before they're even in review.
yeah, I think it's a very valid point. It's a very easy change for us, and I think I may actually just go ahead and do that. Is to just count the time as soon as it's entered. Because if I update that 2 hours, you know, if I come back later and I go and I want to update that 2 hour and make that 2.5 hours, that's just going to synchronize over and update my timesheet. So, you know, wait my 50.
Yeah, the quality of the inspection or whatever really doesn't have anything to do with the time. So I would, yeah, even in not even review in initial.
Yeah, I think as soon as it's entered. I mean, once it's entered, it's entered. It should show up in your time card. If you need to update it, you can update it. Now, where it does become a problem is if I submit this to my supervisor, right? And then I go back to CalPEATS and I update that 2.5 hours. So that's going to create a problem, right? Because I can't change this from 2.5 to 4 because my timesheet's in review. I've already submitted it for approval. So, you know, I can sit here and hit refresh all day long. That 2.5 is not going to change. But if I go to my dashboard, at some point here, I'm going to get a message saying that I have a timesheet entry conflict.
Oh, that's what that blurb was saying. Okay, I didn't quite follow that, but all right.
Well, some of this is going to have to be a training issue for the employee. I'm not going to say that employees don't routinely make mistakes on timesheets and, you know, put more than 8 hours in a day and, you know, put it in the wrong program. This is something that is done almost every day.
Yep.
So we just have to decide what is the larger evil, you know, that something doesn't show up until it's totally approved, or that, you know, an error can be made later. I think that, you know, for me to be able to tell people, listen, once you put something in and you lock it into in review or whatever, you're not allowed to go back in and change it. You know, that's just, I think that could be something that becomes a training issue, you know, not a program issue.
Well, one benefit, you know, thing to remember is this message will show up on my dashboard. It also shows up on my supervisor's dashboard. So, you know, supervisor 02 or whoever is my supervisor, they're also going to see this message. It's going to say not one yours. It'll say one staff. And when I click on that message, or, you know, there's an admin menu entry for under here for CalPEATS time conflicts. Where did that go? Let's go back here and click on here again. Okay, so that opens that up and it says, okay, here's the conflicts that I'm looking at. This is the username, this is the date, this was on inspection such and such. The problem is the timesheet was locked. And what CalPEATS is reporting is 4 hours. And I click on view timesheet and it'll tell me, well, this is reporting 2.5 hours. So one of two things has to happen. I got to go back to CalPEATS and change my 4 hours back to 2.5 hours, or I have to unlock this timesheet and let this 2.5 update to 4.
Yeah, but again, I think that's that's going to spur a interesting conversation between that supervisor and that employee to figure out where the mistake happened. I think that if the mistake happened after the person locked the timesheet and that timesheet has been submitted to the state databases, we don't want that 2.5 to automatically change to 4. We want it to stay 2.5.
Yep.
And so then the employee is like, hey, where are you coming up with these other hours? Why'd you change it to 4? And then that's again, I call that a training problem. You need to train that employee to make sure that they get their stuff done before the monthly report is executed.
Yep, totally agree. You know, in this case, you know, I set the timesheet back to in progress, and it eventually the sync processor updated it to 4. And you know, if I go look at my conflicts again and refresh this grid, the conflict disappears. But if that timesheet had already been submitted through payroll and to the CMR, then
Right.
the solution may be to leave the conflict there. You know, the problem.
Right. Well, and I do know that there's been situations where, like, a year, you know, like today, I accidentally, instead of putting in 6/29/2020, I have put in 6/29/2019 on accident.
Mm-hmm.
And I've changed some hours, right? And, you know, different programs react to that differently, but, you know, something where you got a conflict now showing up on 6/29/2019, you know, what's going on there, you'd realize, oh yeah, I made a kind of a fat finger mistake, and I accidentally went in and tried to change a you know, a timesheet from a year ago rather than changing today's timesheet. Hopefully it'll be obvious to the person what mistake was made.
Yep. Well, we do a lot to prevent it, right? So once this timesheet's approved, I can't make any changes on the timesheet. So I can't accidentally fat finger and put something in, you know, for this date if we're now 2 weeks hence. Also, if I go to my ag activities and I try and enter a new activity on a date where the timesheet is locked, it says I can't do it. So I can't, there's no button here to add a new.
Well, but you would be able to in like the weights and measures or in like the parameter ones, because especially in the one that's done in CalPEATS, I think that the opportunity to make that sort of mistake is a lot higher.